Hello, everybody.
Hi everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. Hope you're all well. Today is my wedding anniversary, people. 6 years. So could you please kindly share with us a memorable date for you? It doesn't need to be an anniversary and it doesn't need to be a birthday. Just something that sticks in your mind. Thanks, Lucinda. Yeah, memorable. Anything memorable. Could be when somebody was born. Something like that, just for fun. If you want to say where you're dialing in from, as Simon says, that's nice too. We hope you're all well. This is going to be an interesting one today. 25th of July. I love the way that Mary's given us a date but hasn't said what it refers to. So now we can all...
There
and
we go.
where Mary is. Fabulous. I wonder what the 25th of July 1998 was for Mary. Intriguing. Oh, your wedding.
Oh, very good.
Very nice. Yes. So, Simon, what are we saying today?
Well, today is all about us working through and explaining a little bit of our thinking and our working behind how we turned our coaching method or our method into an online course in the hope that it kind of adds some clarity and understanding for coaches who might have a method or a process that they are looking to turn into an online course but just haven't quite worked out what the best way of doing that is, what some tools are, what some sort of potential hurdles are they can avoid. So that's what we wanted to go through today to help people understand a little bit more about the process we went through, share some of those learnings and understandings so that people can hopefully get motivated to give it a go. So I'm just finishing off I'm just putting a poll together to see where everybody is at. So I've added a poll for everybody in the poll section. So do vote on the poll. Essentially the question is, do you have an online course? We've got a work in progress. We've got one yes. That's good. 2 yeses. Very good. Excellent. 2 work in progresses. It's 50-50 at this point. Very good. Very good.
No one's saying it's not right for me. So that's interesting.
That's interesting. I thought I'd put a wild card in. 3 work in progresses. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Nice.
So it seems to be. So we don't have any sort of non-believers here. Any people who are completely just nah. But that's really interesting to see. Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody, for taking part in that. So I think probably to kick us off, I would just like to start to frame this whole conversation by saying that we first off decided to create an online course because not that we've been lured in by that kind of romanticized view of online courses, which is, if you build an online course, you can sell the same thing to thousands of people and make loads of money. And I think there's a big sort of movement on the internet, which is this sort of, if you build this online course thing, then people will buy it and they'll just keep buying it and you'll make money while you sleep. And there's a lot of really weird messaging around the world of online courses. So first off, I think for anybody watching live or on repeat, if you are looking for that, you're not going to find it in this conversation, because we believe that making an online course is just a really great way of making your teaching and your learning and your knowledge and your process and your method available to people who are still great customers. Essentially, this isn't about selling a lot of online courses, especially to people who don't really need them. This isn't about how to turn an online course into an upsell, which is another thing I see a lot of. It's like sell someone one course in order to sell them another course and to sell them another one. And there's lots of this sort of stuff. So I think really, I've been, around on the internet for, before the internet was cool. And basically, I've seen all of the tricks played out many, many times. And ultimately, there is a lot of money in telling people that there is a lot of money in making an online course. So we could quite easily be selling this webinar for $997. If you buy in the next 7 minutes, you'll get seven. We could do all the pressure selling and all of that to tell you how we made an online course. And there are many people out there who are making money doing just that. They're selling that idea of, look at me, I've made all this money selling an online course. If you want to do that, I can sell you the answers. It's that magic beans thing, isn't it? It's like, come over here and buy my magic beans. They'll work, I promise. So I think, I just wanted to frame that and get that little rant out of the way before, so then we can move on to a more sort of meaningful and authentic way of having that conversation.
Yeah, Simon loves a rant about magic beans, and I've been caught out. I've said, Simon, this person's amazing. Check out their awesome marketing advice, and I've shown it to Simon, and that there's quite a lot in it that is really cool. But then ultimately, Simon will go, "This is another magic beans situation," because if we scrutinise all of their offerings, it seems as though what they're going to be talking more about is how they've made £10 million a year through coaching or through marketing advice. So it's a really sort of biographical deconstruction as to how somebody has made lots of money themselves, sort of doing something really well. And what we've really tried to do is to take what we're already doing in the community in terms of the work and the model that we have designed and provide as a guide, and sort of really padded it out in the course so that you can be showing up very, very consistently in the community and doing lots of work, but there's something about the fact that we couldn't have possibly held events on every single element of every single bit of the coach's marketing journey, and so we needed to sort of package it in a way that was digestible and think really carefully about the best way that it's digestible. Sometimes that is working on your own, or taking the initiative to then establish conversations with other people along for the ride who might also be doing the course. And so it's a dance around sort of holding space for group work, and then providing guidance that can be done on our own, and also to provide, I think the responsible thing is also to provide a shape for people to continue to work in and to have something to refer back to. That was another driver for me in sort of designing this course. I just went off on one slightly. Let's get the framework of the conversation.
I think the key is that you can always tell a good online course because they're not afraid to tell you what's in it, and they're not afraid to tell you everything that they're going to cover. Because if they're not going to tell you that, then what they're going to tell you is probably summarisable in 1 or 2 web pages. And they don't want to tell you what's going to be in the course, because if you knew, then you wouldn't spend the money on the course. The other thing is that I think being transparent about your method, it builds so much trust with your ideal customer. And there's definitely an element in, I think, a person's journey when they're deciding whether they want to choose a coach, where they're seeking that understanding. And that point comes where they're aware of the problem and they're looking for a solution, and they're not looking for a product. What they're looking for is to learn more about what a solution might look like, what shape it is, and to size up in their mind how much work that feels like. So some people are looking for easy answers. Some people are looking for shortcuts. Now, most people will try a shortcut once just to see if it's worth it, because they always look tempting, don't they? We've all been it. We've all tried it. We've all seen a really long path that goes out and back, and then just seen a really short bit, and we've all had to go, slipped up, fallen on our arse and got covered in mud. Everybody's done it and gone, well, I got covered in mud, but it did save me walking all the way over there and back, right? Generally, with shortcuts, it's not too bad, but you might not do it every time. So when someone's looking for a coach, they might not even be in a position where they're ready for a coach. They're just assessing what their next step is, and at that point, having a method that you talk about openly and present as being an option for a solution builds so much trust with your ideal client. So the reason I'm starting here is because this is how we get to the online course. So I'll quickly show what we do with our... So this is our, essentially, the 6 chapters of our coach's marketing journey. So essentially, these are the 6 things that we know that coaches need to work through in order to get their marketing sorted and to sort of build it into their daily practice and become part of their business rather than that's something they have to do. So for us, we've got these 6 chapters, and on our website, we have a whole guide. He says we have a whole guide that is all about it. So we're being very open. This is the coach's marketing journey, and then we go through each of the 6 chapters, what it's all about, what you need to do at each stage, and how each of these things work. So we're not hiding anything here. We're saying this is what we believe you need to do, and this is what we believe makes coaches successful in their business. So in doing that, what we're doing is we're building that trust first of all. So this is the key when you're trying to sell an online course, is that if you haven't been open with what's inside it, then people can't trust. And there's that element of like, it just becomes that black box, that magic beans element of just like, well, I've no idea what this is. I don't even know if this is right for me. So by setting it up early and saying, this is the process, here it is. Read it, digest it, see what you think of it.
I'm just wondering if it's worth for anyone that might not be in the community but watches this today or on repeat, Simon, to just perhaps do a screenshot of what it looks like when you, because to your point exactly, you get a really clear sort of picture from all the different topics within the chapters. I don't know if we can do a screenshot though for anyone who is not in the community, so can't access what it looks like when you visit the course, just to see.
Oh yeah, well I was going to get to that bit in a minute. That's all right. So essentially, what I'm sort of thinking is that, so if you're open with that, then you immediately separate yourself from those other coaches who are just selling, a mysterious process. If you're open about what you're doing, now it may be that you don't have 6 chapters. It might be you just have 3 things that you work on. So it might be, well, we talk about this, we think about that, and we do this, maybe. And that is going to make you feel potentially one of these things. It's going to bring you these insights. It's going to reframe your thinking, or it's going to turn you in the right direction so that you can then do something else. Whatever the outcome, insight or feeling is that your process, your method gets people to, being open about that isn't giving them anything, because all you're doing is you're saying, here's all of the knowledge, here's the theory, and it's not that they can necessarily go away and do that themselves, because they still need you. But what you're doing is you're showing them that plan. So when we created this journey, what we realised is, well, actually what we need now is a way of allowing people to dive deeper. So they can read about that on the website and they can be like, yeah, cool, I get it. I understand these 6 steps. I could go away and I could work on my mindset. I could go away and I could work on my story. That the page there tells you the things that you should work on. But some people are going to say, yeah, but what do I need? Like, how do I do that bit? How do I do this bit? Is there like an exercise I can do that will help me understand that a bit more? Now, by creating an online course, the answer to all of those questions is yes. So what we then did is we then created a series of videos and exercises that people can work through those 6 chapters. So what we then did is we essentially just answered the questions that people may have by looking at that process. So what I can do is, as Francis said, let me show you how that actually ended up, because it essentially follows exactly the same process. So when you buy the course, when you get in, this is what you see. So you see mindset, and then these are all of the videos and the exercises that you work through. Then you've got client, and then here's some more exercises, here's some more video lessons. So for example, if you click on one of these lessons and you get the video, but then you also get the written lesson underneath. So what we did is we broke down our whole journey into what actually turned out to be 50 steps. So that is a fair amount of steps in the long run, but each of those videos is only a few minutes long. They're not like that's 50 hours of stuff to work through, and it's that case of how to make it manageable, but we'll come to that in a bit. But I hope we can see there that is the process of turning the process you go through into a series of steps that people can take. So you're not hiding anything up front, and all you're doing is guiding them through it. So why would you choose an online course over, say, one-to-one or group work? And when me and Francis first spoke about this, we did consider doing this as group sessions instead. But the problem is that takes quite a lot of time for us. You know, we have to coordinate our calendars, it would be putting sessions in, it'd be devising live sessions to run, and we just looked at the amount of time that was going to take, and the fact that actually we would just be repeating those over and over again, and we just thought, you know what, this is going to be easier and more cost effective for us to just do this once, which then means people can watch it and go back to it and revisit it over and over again. And because of that, we can deliver it at a price point that it's a lot more accessible to coaches who are just starting out, as opposed to coaches who might be further down the journey who are looking for more sort of one-to-one support or group work support. And we've got a different product for that further down the line. But that's where we felt that the video course positioned it just positioned it really nicely. And it isn't a case of we thought, oh yeah, well then we can sell thousands of these, and we'll be able to retire to a cottage in Hawaii by the end of the year if we make a video course.
Yeah, there's two things in there for me. So one is I do genuinely also think that we all have different learning styles, and we just want to make sure that we're sort of providing something for everyone, but not trying to speak to everyone, just to kind of diversify the learning opportunity. So yes, there are lots of people who come to our events regularly, and that's really nice. I think the course is really useful for those guys, and in fact we got some really nice feedback that from one of them, having already attended many of our sessions and Monday Masterclasses, it was still super helpful to have a framework for them to kind of refer back to and do some sort of private meditative work on. And then there's going to be lots of people who don't want to attend all the live events because they can't, or they're not that way inclined, and we wanted to have something that would work for them. So it's a combination of that sort of what makes the most sense for us, and also in mind of what might make the most sense for people that we're trying to provide this service to and this guidance to. And then sort of wrapped up slightly in that for me is that if we were to try to deliver all of this stuff on a one-to-one basis, then we couldn't then go to the next level of things, which is what we're working on right now. And also we couldn't sort of maybe service the community in some of the sort of day-to-day ways, or frankly do any external marketing, as it were, because we would just be prioritising this kind of group and tips and tricks style teaching about each step. So it just felt right from a design point of view that we would produce what we have. And this is this session today and something that I wrote last week about sort of why did we build this is the sort of open source approach to us going, this is how we built this thing. Really interested in feedback, want to know what you're going to do with it. And I just want to say on that front, you can ask a question here on the Monday Masterclass by just clicking ask a question. So we don't know necessarily what it is that you guys who are listening live today might be particularly interested in, and this is just an invitation for you to ask whatever you want in relation to the course. So whether it's around like what it was like for us to put together, or how did we feel ready for it, or did we think it up before we came up with a community, or like whatever, just ask away, you know, feel free. And then needless to say, if you're in our community, you can ask a question at any point. So
yes. Well, the other thing I think that this sort of rolls into in terms of the next thought process, and maybe some people are having, is this kind of, how much do I need to deliver? How big is an online course? How many videos? How long is it? What is it? And one of the reasons we were drawn to Mighty Networks, which is the platform we use to deliver, is because that Gina, the lady who is the CEO of Mighty Networks, she does this amazing thing called the myth of more. And her sort of concept is that essentially for a self-service course or a video course that people are going to work through, really it should take between 1 and 2 hours to do that module before you get the next bit. So what we've designed our course to do is to pose some questions that you could work through in 1 to 2 hours. Some people will probably want to, you know, maybe spend a little longer thinking about some of that. But actually, if you just want to get the principles of each one, then it is about an hour. If you want to do slightly deeper, then it's probably 2 hours. But essentially what we had to do was use that sort of prompt of like, well, if I had someone for 2 minutes, you know, if you were just going and meeting someone every morning, let's say, for a week, and you wanted them to work through, in our example, mindset, what would those prompts be? What would you say to them? You'd say like, okay, today I just want you to spend, you know, half an hour just thinking about this. They'd be like, oh, okay, cool. So you break it down into those little chunks that people can actually work through, rather than saying, like a chapter of a textbook level, just like, here's this enormous thing I want you to work through, and that's week 1, and then I want you to do this, and then, you know, we could have, you know, taken this and made it a huge, almost degree level marketing course and taught you all about how to run Facebook ads and got really into detailed analytics and, you know, high level marketing strategies, and but in reality people don't want to know that. It's like, what are the real simple essentials that will just work? And that's what we actually did. So if you've got your process, it's a case of breaking it down into sort of chunks that you think people could work through in about an hour, and then splitting that chunk into tiny prompts, which are the kind of thing you could get someone to do on a phone call or a quick, you know, couple of minutes. Here's a thing to think about, and just keep it one thought, one thing, really simple.
I think we've got 2 questions here, and they're both excellent.
Oh, wonderful.
They speak to 2 of the sort of main themes around designing a course, right? So the first
Which one do you want to answer first?
I'm going to mention both of them to illustrate the point that they both illustrate 2 important themes.
Okay.
And then we can sort of see where it goes from there. But the 2 themes are, you know, back to that design for you point that Simon made. How much support do you decide to give when you're building an online course, if you decide to give any support, right? So this is the answer to that, Lucinda, is going to speak to the thing that you as a very committed community member will know, which is that this is about you as much as it's about designing for other people, right? So we'll answer that in a minute. And then Eric asks an excellent question, which is, I'll just read that out so people know what I'm talking about. What was the most useful thing you did to turn your ideas about the programme into reality? I want to be really transparent and say to you all that the process of us actually creating the course was invaluable for us. We learnt so much about trying to design a way to break down these 6 chapters into meaningful chunks, as Simon has described. And the other thing to be transparent about is we are under no illusion that we aren't going to have to go in and tweak bits, like whether that's a bit of content, a different exercise. We're going to add resources constantly as they come to us and as we collect them as content marketeers, because content marketeering is as much about collecting as it is about sort of curating and generously serving. So as we continually collect, we will be adding bits and bobs. And yeah, we want to encourage people to kind of pivot and iterate on whatever they've shipped, as and when they feel it's appropriate, and it's no different for us. What we have here is something we're really, really pleased with, and we're happy to kind of package and give to you guys. And the process of putting it together was super helpful. So to go back to the question, what was the most useful thing you did to turn your ideas about the programme into reality? I think the most useful thing for me was to try to design a course.
Yeah.
Because honestly, the reality, ideas were not necessarily a sort of conscious reality before we tried to do that. So, I mean, Simon, what's your maybe slightly less existential answer to that question?
Well, I think to focus on Eric's answer first is what was the most useful thing. I think, to be honest, it was that process of saying, right, well, we know there are these 6 stages that we want coaches to work through. So what we did is, what I was just describing, it's that chunking thing, and it's saying, okay, turning the big concept into roughly an hour to 2 hours work and the small prompts. Because what it did is it very quickly showed us, like, there is some sort of marketing theory from one of the many books I have behind me that we could have included. But is that the right level that we want, or is that just too much? And ultimately it was about refining it down to the kind of the real sort of focused essentials that we wanted people to know. And I think it's that thing of just like, if you had an hour to spend with someone and you had to teach them everything they need to know, not everything you want to teach them. So you want to teach them everything they need to know about that one topic, what would it be? Because everything else will come later. You can save it back. It's okay to save a bit back. Because although you want to put more and more and more in, from their side, that's like asking for a can of Coke and just being given 200 cans of Coke. You're just like, wow, that's a little bit more than I thought I was going to get. What on earth am I going to do with all this? You know, you're like, I've got nothing. I've got nowhere to put this. I can't take this home with me. This is of no use. It's just too much. And I think the same is true with knowledge. It's that kind of, yes, it feels great to impart knowledge and to teach and inspire people, but you can go too high too quick. I suppose it's like giving someone, someone saying, so how do hedge funds work? And you give them a master's degree textbook on economics. It's like, the answer's definitely in there. You'll find it. Once you work through the first 5,000 words, then you'll get to the bit you really, you know what I mean? It's too much too soon. So that's not what I'm implying you're doing, but I'm just saying from a temptation point of view, it's always tempting to go big and go, yeah, there's loads. So I would say the most useful thing we did was actually to strip out bits that we might have wanted to put in and actually just go down to, like, just think about that and you'll come to your own realisation rather than trying to guide people too much.
And that actually, I think, speaks to Lucinda's question, because not guiding plus how much hand-holding we're doing is very intentional at this point. And Simon, you've described how good courses are like excellent textbooks, really, I think, is kind of how you've described them to me when we've talked about this. And, we talk about the sort of metaphor of the lecture theatre and a seminar and a textbook, and if we were to have written a textbook with everything in it, where it was really, really hard to work it through on your own, then it wouldn't have been a very effective one. Is this a lecture theatre? Is it a seminar? No, but it is an extremely sort of reliable, it's in its first edition now, but let's hope it gets like reprinted into 12 editions kind of thing. That's the sort of level of textbook that I hope we've designed for everyone. I was going to say something else, actually.
Well, I think something came up when I've been thinking about Lucinda's question. So in terms of support, you've got sort of, I guess, 2 ways of doing it. You can either have like an online course where your online course is the sort of, here's all the ideas, and then we're going to meet as a group on this predefined time, and we're going to discuss and think and evolve those ideas. And in that sense, it works like a kind of university of like, well, here's the textbook, and then come to the seminar, come to the lecture, where I'm going to recap the ideas, and then we're going to do Q&A, and we're going to sort of feedback and do some group work and all those other activities. That is good, but it does then have a time commitment. So the other option is to remove the time commitment and just essentially be providing people with the textbook. So you're just saying, okay, here's the textbook, work through it. It's very manageable. This isn't master's degree level textbook, but it is the kind of textbook that, you can come back and revisit time and time again. It's that kind of book that you read that you put loads of bookmarks in and bits of paper and fold the pages over and underline it and go, yeah, this is great. And then every 6 months you're like, oh, there's that bit in that book that told me how to do this. And you open, oh yeah, and you remind, it's that book you come back to over and over again. And what we've chosen to do is to create a small sort of group that you can ask questions in, you can post feedback, you can post examples, you can post in the group, and we are there to answer that. But it's not a structured or time-bound sort of feedback or ideas. So we are building a product where that is the case. But what we wanted to do at this stage in our course with a conscious decision is build something that was sort of suitable for coaches who are just starting out, or coaches who are kind of thinking, do you know what, my one-to-one sessions are full, like I've got all my one-to-ones done, what I really need is something else for people who aren't quite at that level yet, a kind of like academy or a other, I've heard lots of different words for it, but that sort of other thing, the sort of lower level, but not wanting to make it sound lower in expectation, but just slightly simpler, the essentials, the basics that you want people to cover. Entry level, there's the phrase. So I hope that has answered that, Lucinda. But essentially, I think the amount of support you give depends on the amount of time you want to put into it, and therefore, I think should be priced accordingly. And I think if you can offer, an automated video course with a digital group that people can put ideas, questions, feedback into, that you can then respond to in your own time, that's the kind of base level, and that goes all the way up to having group lessons and maybe even one-to-ones based off of the video learning.
You've made me think also to answer Eric's question. So I think invariably you will be sitting, as per usual, this comes back to niching. You'll be sitting behind a conscious or unconscious sort of bias, if you like, towards the kind of people that you need to be serving, and also the sort of like bigger picture vision, mission, manifesto that you sort of feel very passionate about. So for us, for example, that's ethical marketing and changing the marketing conversation from sort of toxic tactical 10x your income bullshit. So when you're deciding what's put into your course, I think the number one I'm going to go back to your question again, which is now answered. So yeah, I think one of the most useful things you can do is kind of know that you're going to be curating, as Simon said, a load of potential information that could be put in there, but make sure that what you're putting in there speaks to that bigger vision. So we've chosen to put in stuff for coaches, so you're our audience that we've chosen, and so we've curated the information that we've put into the course to speak to you guys, and it speaks to a bigger sort of mission that we have around changing the marketing conversation. So it's not only the stuff that we put in there, but the style with which we have talked about the stuff. And that's, if you watch the videos or read the content of our course, then you get a flavour for what it is to kind of be joining us in a bigger mission to change the marketing conversation. And we hope will kind of energise you in the way that we think is going to be most sustainable as coaches in terms of the profitability and continuity of your businesses. So we're showing you by way of an example, we hope, what you can do in turn with your own clients, which is on a meta level to serve to them through a course, an approach, a practice, a philosophy, a kind of way of being. So that was the other thing I just wanted to add, is to become conscious of some of that stuff when you're designing the course.
Yeah, no, I think that is really important. And And I think there's so many different business models available for delivering a course that, I think we can kind of talk about the one we chose, but ultimately there are many different ways of delivering it. But I think for us, we wanted it to really feel like a resource, that sort of dependable, reliable resource that's just great and is going to be updated, and it just feels like a good thing to have access to. And that was our purpose for designing it, building it, and creating it. So that's why we chose to add it to the community and make it part of the membership. Now, there may be some of you listening who don't have a community or don't want to have a community, and that's absolutely fine. And there are other platforms out there that just do the course delivery bit, because although Mighty Networks is amazing because it has the community and the courses all built into one, you do have to have the community in order to get to the courses. So if you are looking for a platform to just do the course and you don't want the community just yet, then that's fine. The other platform we did look at, I looked at all of them, and I've got a blog on all of the different ones I looked at, and I will post a link to that blog in the chat and in the show notes. And that blog went through all of the different platforms I looked at and what I thought of them. For my money, if I wasn't going with Mighty Networks, I would go with Thinkific. I thought Thinkific was absolutely fantastic. I thought the interface was really good, both for the person creating the course and the person taking the course, and it had loads of great tools. For us, the thing that was really lacking was the community. And just as a very quick tip, a lot of the platforms talk about having a community, but actually it's just a really crap blog. I'll be honest, like, is it Podiant? They talk about having a community, but it's just a really lackluster blog. Thinkific says it's got a community, but it's just a one-way traffic. It's like you with a megaphone shouting at your course subscribers. But I don't want to get into too much of that because I think that blog really well summarises the tools.
Not that we're in the business of shit-slinging about products at all, and we're also not sponsored by Mighty Networks.
No, exactly. No. We do just, I think
we love Mighty Networks.
I mean, I ran a software development team for about 5 years internally, so I know how hard it is to build software products. And the way that Mighty Networks are transparent about what they're working on, for the real keen people amongst you, they do like live streams with their dev teams explaining what they're building, why they're building it, why it's taking so long, and they ask for a feature request and stuff like that. And I've just found their team to be really, really useful and open and transparent about why they're building what they're building and why they're choosing to build this feature over that feature, and being open about the difficulties, which I think is really, really great. So as a sort of, not retired, but like, recovering software developer, it feels like a really cool team, and they do a lot of good work. But I also know a couple of coaches in our community who use Thinkific, and I also think that's really good. So do check out the blog if you are looking for tools. Should we jump on to Mary's question?
Yeah, I'm so excited about this one because Mary asks, so your course looks great. Thanks, Mary. Very clear structure and sequencing. My huge challenge is how to find the time to put a course together. Is it very time consuming? Is it a very time consuming process? And any tips to make it more workable, achievable? Okay, so this is going to be, for me, the answer is all around the sort of repurposing, recycling stuff, as well as sort of think out loud and use the opportunity to work out what it is that you actually think kind of answer. When you don't have a community, as Simon has mentioned, let's talk about how we did it, Simon. Let's talk about how we have managed, with 2 children under 4, another business over there, only working 4 days a week, to generate 50 videos and write copy in 6-7 weeks, while also like hosting an amazing community. Okay, would you like to go first? How did we do that?
So essentially, I think when I spoke about chunking it down and making it manageable, when you do that, you are in essence refining your thoughts on it. So basically what you end up with is just a long list of very short things to make. Now, because the way we wanted to write the whole thing out before we launched it, because that served us in a way that might not serve everybody listening, we wanted to get clarity on the whole process, because for us, the journey chapter at the end, we still needed to link to mindset at the beginning and work through the flow. So me and Francis just needed to collaborate and create that entire structure before we could hit send. Now, if you've been delivering your method for a long time, or your method is well documented, or your process is already clear and you don't need that stage, you don't need to have made all of it before you start selling it or delivering it. If you're open about the fact that the chapters are going to be released, or let's call them sections, or your sections are going to be released, let's say once a month for the next 4 months, 6 months, whatever, then people will be okay with that as long as you're upfront with them. So if you're using something like Thinkific, or if you're using Mighty Networks, you can create the first chapter, your first section, and start selling it. And then you can be working on the second section while they're doing the first section. And then you can release that once it's ready. So if you break it up into manageable chunks, then actually, recording 3 or 4 2-minute videos isn't a huge amount of work. Once you've got the gear set up, it doesn't take too long. I don't want to get too much into that because I can see Lucinda's question bubbling away underneath that, so we'll loop back to that. But actually recording the stuff and writing it doesn't take too long if it's chunked up into short, because 2-minute read, what's that, 500-600 words maybe is a short section. And then if you want to do a longer explainer, maybe 1,000 words, what's that, 5-6 minute read? And you don't have to record all of that in video. As we always talk about with the watch, read, listen, do, watching is good for the video, so you might want to have the main prompt in the video. Then the reading you may want to do as a long read underneath the video like we have. So I would say you're designing the course, so you get to choose what format it's in. So you may have a mixture of videos and a mixture of maybe some illustrations, some graphics, some photographs. Maybe there's some other YouTube videos you could use where other people have illustrated a process or something happening. Maybe you've got some client testimonials. So mix and match all of that together. And essentially, remember the myth of more. You need to be able to work through it in around an hour to 2 hours per section. And I wouldn't really have more than 5 or 6 sections, really, because already that's enough for that course. So break it down, keep it simple would be my tip for making it more manageable.
Okay, here's mine. We came up with Monday Masterclass themes, you may have noticed, for the last 6 weeks prior to the one that we did last week, which were the chapters of the marketing journey. So here's what our week looked like. Those were at 12:30 on a Monday. Simon and I would chat at 10 o'clock ish, depends, give or take exercise and children and all that sort of shizzle, intensely for about an hour and a half, about what we really want to say about that subject. It would more stuff would come out in the wash on the Monday Masterclass, and we were really organised and really diligent about then writing a blog post to post to you all on the Wednesday, making sure we have a very clear structure for both our internal and our external communications around the things that we want to mention. So for those of you in the community who get a Feel Good Friday post, we do fun stuff in it, like we have a member of the week, but we're also very clear about talking about what we did in the Monday Masterclass plus what Simon did in their tips and tricks, which invariably will have been informed by, guess what, the chapter in question. my reflection and confidence session on a Thursday, on a conscious or unconscious level, will have been informed by the conversations that we've all been having that week around that chapter. And before we even started, we put time in the diary, and made sure we had, let's say, like 3 or 4 hours within the week that we were producing content about those, to film, to write as soon as possible, and then film as soon as possible what we were saying. So that is the honest truth about how we were able to discipline ourselves to actually get shit done. So the thing that I don't like is when people talk about marketing planning for the sake of being able to schedule posts until, you know, next quarter, because I really like the idea of being able to give yourself permission to talk about what you actually want to talk about and to respond to people in sort of real time, as opposed to posting something and then like not even bothering to have a conversation with anyone if they, you know. So I'm not really down with that stuff. But what we are really good at geeking out on is like making time where we know we're going to need it to reflect and package the stuff that we've been talking about and thinking about. And when you put time in the diary, it's amazing how much time you can actually make when you really need to, and we all know what that means. You know, we all like to luxuriate in going down rabbit holes, and we provide that opportunity actively in the community. You know, if you do any of my 1.5 hour long sort of working together sessions, it's very much about going, right, let's just commit to one thing and then just geek out and go down a rabbit hole for 1.5 hours, and we won't know where we're going to go, and let's all rejoin at the end and talk about it. But this was like, right, total discipline. We don't know what we're going to be writing, but we know we're going to need 3 or 4 hours to do it and film. And by the way, last point, I hate videoing myself talking. This is fine. Really happy to do this all day long. Simon is amazing at having, you know, and they've been doing it for years because they've been in TV, sound, film production. I have not been in TV, sound and film production for 20 years. I come with loads of other skills, but putting my face in front of a video and talking at it, and the tech involved in teleprompters and which ones to use and where should you put your camera, it's like, and I've learned a lot about giving myself a bit of a break. And I, you know, I'm not going to say like the videos in the course are necessarily my proudest marketing output, but they serve the purpose and they're good enough and they do the job. And I've enjoyed working with Simon in the process because, you know, I think Simon will say and did say they're getting better. So I just wanted to really share transparently the process of our workflow for the last 6 weeks, as it were.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think to carry that thought on, I'm going to jump on to Lucinda's question. So in terms of the video equipment, ultimately I could now sell you a package of £1,000 worth of camera equipment. I could sell you lights, I could sell you all sorts. However, the reality is all you need is a nice microphone, thusly, and you should all have one for your podcast anyway. A nice webcam, because the built-in ones are a bit bin bags when it comes to making video content. Francis has one. I'm actually using mine now, which is over here. You can spend anything between about 40 quid and about 200 quid, depending on...
Mine was probably... Well, Simon gave me mine for free because I didn't really have one.
Your one was £40.
£40, okay.
And it's good. It's essentially what you want is something that's going to try and balance a bit with the light, makes you look good. Now, I'm using a vanity light because I've got the gear. Oh, there you go. Let's do a proper behind the scenes look.
Oh no! Whoa! You see how much prettier Simon looks?
Yeah. See, so I've got my light there.
Than I do.
Yeah, and what's happened now is my camera stand has fallen down the back. So this is massively backfired. But essentially, I'm just going to have to put you like that while I pick up the stand.
This is the bit where someone pressed the lift music.
Yeah. But it's definitely live. I think that's what we can all agree is we can all agree it's definitely live. So in terms of the gear, it doesn't have to be picture perfect. If you want to get a light, again, they're about 100 quid on Amazon for a nice set of lights. Get a mic, get a nice camera. Set yourself up with an interesting background like this, and essentially it's just to the camera, Smile. Make sure you smile. That would be my other top tip. Now, for those of you who are in the community, we've got a whole hour on this tomorrow called Being Brave with Video.
I've also
So
got
I'm
another
going to
idea.
dangle that carrot. So come along to that and I'll share even more tips and tricks for that.
And I will maybe at some point, you know how everyone asks you, what do you want for your birthday? We will write, I'm going to hold myself to account for this, a sort of birthday list of tech that you might like people to get you to be better at marketing as coaches. So it might be a year's subscription to Mighty Networks, or a £40 camera, or a microphone. And then when people go, what can I get you? It's like, actually, I'll just
here's
send you
my
a link
Christmas
to my
list.
my marketing for coaches Christmas
Yes.
list. And
I
then,
will put that together.
I don't know if Rob's joking. Can't wait.
Oh, yeah, Rob.
Rubbish content.
Rob likes having a good old geek out on gear, doesn't he? So
Yeah.
I use an auto cue because I've got an auto cue because I've made hundreds of videos over the years and I can't remember anything. I just the camera goes on. I'm like, if it's live, I can ad lib it, but if I need to go through some points, it's just too waffly. Then what you do is you take your footage and you put it into Descript. I'm going to put a link in the chat. It does your editing for you. You put it in, it creates a Word document, and you edit the Word document, and it edits your video and audio. It literally couldn't be easier. We're not sponsored by Descript at all, but we probably should be for the amount of traffic and client I've sent them. We'll get a sponsorship deal with them one day, but we don't need to be. It's genuinely amazing. No, it's a very good point. So I hope that has answered the question, Lucinda. You don't need special gear. Essentially, if it's got a nice bit of light, you've got a good microphone, you pace yourself, you smile before you talk. That's the key. And then as soon as you do those three things, ultimately, it's just about creating short, concise videos, and you can edit them together with Descript, and then that should hopefully solve all of your video recording needs.
And by the way, so firstly, when you've done the Descript thing, you do probably need to read through the content. You know, I do, well, we both do, but I love to geek out on copy editing. And also, things come to you. So when I've read through the content that we've put through Descript because we videoed them, you can pad out the kind of copy that comes from that, add things a little bit, tweak it a little bit. And then just back to my repurposing point, Mary, you will get a load of content, which, you know, and here's the interesting bit, how much of it do you share for free on the basis of how much you might like for people to become aware of your method and your approach? And, you know, there's a whole lot of science, well, not science actually, but we could talk a lot around sort of sharing and the concept of like oversharing in terms of what you've got in your course. How much do you then want to kind of drip out so that people know that you have a course, you know? And I think people probably get quite anxious about that. It's like, why would I design a course and charge for it and then like give it all away for free? And it's like, well, you can repurpose the content in a really brilliant way, not least because you've just spent loads of time, you know, putting it all together. So surely you want to kind of recycle it a little bit. But also, carry on with this point, Simon. I need to plug in my iPhone.
Essentially, I think the key is that the ideas you should be giving away for free. So the method, you know, the coach's marketing journey, we give away for free. Like, anybody can use that. What you do is you charge for the implementation. So there's different levels of implementation. The first level of implementation for us is a video course. It's self-service. The next level of that is group work, and then the top level of that is one-to-one. And the amount of time you spend with us and the amount of time that it takes from our schedule, i.e., you know, access to us, is where the costs increase. So the ideas that we work with don't really change as you progress up, but the amount of implementation support and help that we give does increase. So it's priced accordingly. So I think with that in mind, the reason that some people get a bit nervous about talking about what's in the course or giving away maybe, you know, like, so for example, you can watch the first video in each of our modules for free. And that's just a feature that's built into Mighty Networks. It's just called Preview. It just means people can get a flavour for what's going to be happening in each module. Now, some people might be like, well, why would you do that? And it's like, well, because the idea is already accessible for free. We're not charging you for the idea. What we're charging you for is the knowledge and the expertise of the implementation, and we have different levels of doing that.
Yeah, and the accountability, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you guys know what our 6 chapters are, but people are buying the course because they're like, "But I need to do the work," and it's like, yes,
exactly.
you need to do the work because it's the like, otherwise you're just, pretending to yourself that you've done the work. So I'm looking at the time. This is.
I know. I was just going to very.
Hasn't it?
It has. I'm just going to very quickly answer Mary's question. So Mary is saying, if you use other people's content like YouTube videos, other copyright issues, ultimately, if it's on YouTube, you can embed it as long as you credit it. Now it'll do that. In most platforms, will just allow that person to go out to YouTube. So in YouTube, you can use pretty much anything on YouTube as long as you're not pretending that content is your own. If you're saying, and here's a great video from so-and-so where they explain this, and then you have the video, that's fine. If you use not TED Talks, no, you do need to license TED Talks. But on YouTube, you could feature the TED Talk, but you would potentially need to... you'd have to look into TED, although that might be under Creative Commons, so you might be okay. That's a difficult one, the TED Talk specific. But I know just from the YouTube general license, it's fine as long as you're not claiming it's your own work.
Yeah, and I think there's a bit of cricket. What's cricket here? Like, why on earth wouldn't you want to credit somebody if you've found their information to be useful? I mean, we in each chapter of our marketing journey, in each bit of the course, there's a lesson, a topic, or a sort of page dedicated to useful resources. Like, no one's pretending to have come up with the wheel. The whole point is that you are a curator of wonderful things, and you're digesting it for the people that you want to serve and providing them in a really easy to access and easy to use way. A signposted journey for them to go on. Credit. That's just cricket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think credit. Yeah, as Mary's clarified, like, crediting is definitely something she would do. I mean, ultimately, in terms of using other people's stuff, there's 2 schools of thought. One is, if you ask, they'll say no because they have to. So as long as you're not claiming it's your own and you're crediting them and you're being nice about it, generally most people won't mind. However, I'm not a lawyer. A lawyer would tell you something completely different, but I'll be honest, I know people who have approached big movie studios to use clips in presentations, and of course the movie studios say, well, because you've asked, we have to say no. Essentially what they were saying is, if you hadn't have asked, we would never have known and you would have got away with it. So as long as you credit it and you're nice about it, then I think you'll be all right. Obviously, if someone's got an issue with it, they might get in touch, but I can't imagine they would.
Yeah, and give yourself a break. Do your best. Show your workings. And
just be open about where it comes from.
Yeah,
as well.
we all remember things or think something might have been our idea, but nothing is. Sorry to get a bit sort of existential again, but nothing within us is unique to us. If it's not a kind of bodily intergenerational thing that we've inherited in our bones, it's going to be some sort of like something that's been connoted to us by media in the world, whether we're conscious or unconscious of it. So we can only do our best to credit where we know that credit's due, and that shouldn't, I hope, be anything that holds you back from designing something that I know, Mary, you're entirely qualified to do and put it out there.
Yeah,
so,
I would say if you're just going to use a snippet of a TED Talk from a YouTube video, you'd be all right. If you were going to have a whole course based around a TED Talk, then that would be a different level. Do you see what I mean? Like, if you just go, like, here's 2 minutes of that.
Yeah,
it's really good, isn't it? And then it would be. Whereas if you've got, like, based on this TED Talk, here's a whole thing you can buy. That's a different level of crediting. So yes, I think we're going to have to wrap it up. But yeah, thank you very much for listening and watching. I will put the link in if you want to know more about the self-service course that we've built. Then check it out.
It's now available outside of the community. And we haven't mentioned that we have been accredited by the Association for Coaching. So if you want to do our course, then you will get up to 16 hours worth of continued professional development. Hurrah! So it's brilliant. Definitely worth doing. If you're not part of the community, join the community, do the course. And we will not be selling you magic beans, just telling you how we have made loads of money designing a course. There's actually some good stuff in there.
Of course.
Thanks,
Good
Rod.
stuff. So yes, do check it out, and yes, do join if you want to be amongst lots of other like-minded coaches all working on their marketing. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening and watching, and we will see you next time.
See you.